Today, we are going to discuss the Romanov family of Russia, who was once the epitome of imperial grandeur in Russia. The haunting legacy of their lives, marked by loyalty, love, and untimely death, continues to captivate and intrigue generations. The rise of the Romanov family and the rule of Peter the Great significantly shaped Russian history. Ivan III of Moscow, who ruled Russia from 1462 to 1505, accomplished several things. First, he conquered much of the territory around Moscow. Second, he liberated Russia from the Mongols. Third, he began to centralize the Russian government. Ivan III was succeeded by his son, Vasily, who ruled for 28 years. Vasily continued his father's work of adding territory to the growing Russian state. He also increased the power of the central government. This trend continued under his son, Ivan IV, who would become an absolute ruler. Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible, ascended to the throne in 1533 at the age of 3. His reign was marked by struggles between Russia's landowning nobles, the boyars, who vied for control of the young Khazar. When Ivan turned 16, he took full control, declaring himself Tsar, a title derived from Caesar, symbolizing supreme authority. During his early reign, Ivan established a centralized government, expanded Russian territory, and introduced a legal code. His good period saw stability and progress, but it ended in 1560 with the death of his beloved wife, Anastasia Romanov. Believing the boyars had poisoned her, Ivan embarked on a reign of terror, creating a secret police force that hunted down and executed his perceived enemies, including many boyars and their families. The chaos culminated in 1581 when Ivan, in a fit of rage, killed his own son, leaving his weak second son as heir. Following Ivan's death in 1584, Russia entered a period of instability known as the Time of Troubles. With the death of Ivan's heir and various claimants to the throne, the country descended into chaos. Boyars fought for power, while foreign invasions and impostors claiming to be Ivan's heirs destabilized the nation. To restore order, representatives from Russian cities convened in 1613 and elected Michael Romanov as Khazar, thus founding the Romanov dynasty, which ruled for 300 years. The Romanovs consolidated power by strengthening the monarchy and suppressing uprisings. Michael Romanov's reign brought stability, and his successors continued to centralize authority. This paved the way for Peter the Great, one of Russia's most influential rulers. Initially sharing the throne with his half-brother, Peter became the sole ruler in 1696. His reign was characterized by extensive reforms aimed at modernizing Russia. Russia, at the time, remained largely medieval, with a rigid social structure dominated by boyars and serfs. Unlike Western Europe, Russia had been isolated from the Renaissance and the Age of Exploration due to Mongol rule and its geographic position. The country's only significant port, Archangel, was frozen for much of the year, limiting trade and contact with the West. Religious differences also widened the gap between Russia and Europe, as Russia followed Eastern Orthodoxy while the West was predominantly Catholic or Protestant. Determined to transform Russia, Peter embarked on the Grand Embassy, a long journey through Europe in 1697 to 1698. He studied shipbuilding in the Netherlands, learned about European military tactics, and sought to modernize Russian industry and administration. Upon returning, Peter implemented sweeping reforms, often forcibly, to westernize Russia and strengthen his rule. One of Peter's most significant actions was bringing the Russian Orthodox Church under state control. He abolished the position of patriarch and established the Holy Synod to administer church affairs under his supervision. He also reduced the power of the boyars by promoting loyal officials from lower social ranks and granting them land in exchange for service. The boyars were members of the highest rank of the Russian nobility, second only to the ruling princes and later the czars. They played a significant role in Russian politics from the medieval period until the early Romanov era. Boyars were landowning aristocrats who held vast estates and exerted considerable influence over the government, often serving as advisors to the ruler and participating in the Boyar Council, known as the Boyar Duma. Peter the Great further diminished their power by introducing merit-based service nobility, requiring aristocrats to serve the state in administrative or military roles rather than relying solely on hereditary privilege. It can be remembered that during the time of Ivan IV, the Terrible, they were viewed as threats to his absolute rule and weakened their influence by confiscating their lands and establishing the oprichnina, a system that granted land to new nobles loyal to him. Peter modernized the Russian military by recruiting European officers and adopting Western training techniques. Service in the army became a lifelong commitment, and by his death, Russia boasted a formidable military of 200,000 men. To support his army, Peter introduced heavy taxation, placing a significant burden on the population. Peter's westernization policies extended to Russian society. He introduced potatoes, which became a staple food, and started Russia's first newspaper. He elevated the status of women by encouraging their participation in social events, mandated Western-style clothing for nobles, and promoted education by founding schools for navigation, arts, and sciences. To ensure the success of his reforms, he sent young Russians abroad to study European practices. To expand Russia's influence, Peter sought to secure a warm-water port. Engaging in a prolonged war against Sweden, he finally gained access to the Baltic Sea after 21 years of conflict. In 1703, he established St. Petersburg on the newly acquired territory, envisioning it as Russia's window to the west. The city, built on swampy land, required immense labor, with thousands of serfs conscripted to work under harsh conditions, leading to significant loss of life. Despite the suffering involved, St. Petersburg became Russia's new capital, symbolizing Peter's vision of a Europeanized Russia. He mandated that nobles relocate there, reinforcing its importance as the political and cultural heart of the nation. The city's construction demonstrated Peter's determination to modernize Russia, no matter the cost. Peter's reforms had a lasting impact, propelling Russia into the ranks of European powers. By the time of his death in 1725, Russia was a formidable state with a modernized army, navy, and administrative structure. However, his policies also imposed heavy burdens on the population, leading to resistance among the nobility and peasantry. While Peter's efforts to westernize Russia were met with opposition, they ultimately transformed the country. His establishment of a powerful centralized state laid the foundation for future Russian rulers. His successors continued his policies to varying degrees, shaping Russia's trajectory for centuries. The Romanov dynasty, which Peter strengthened, continued to rule Russia until the Russian Revolution in 1917, when the monarchy was overthrown. The legacy of Peter the Great and the Romanovs remains deeply embedded in Russian history, marking a period of immense transformation and expansion.